You always forget your. Oh, and let me let you share.
Thanks.
You can share. Okay, you can share. You can take like 5 or 8 minutes. That'd be great.
Sure. Okay. So yes, as Brian mentioned, I will talk about self-continuous training AI models, and this falls under a bigger space of MLOps in AWS. So I wrote a rather medium-sized article about how this looks, just to get you a feel about my background. I joined an AI startup as a founding engineer. So they already have all these AI models, like very precise, very accurate, developed in academia, and they have built an MVP for their applications. And this is the first time as they gain as they go to market, I joined as a founding engineer. And when I joined, I encountered all sorts of different stuff. And and MLOps, how it differs from DevOps. I foresee this that I mentioned here. And the first is interdisciplinary collaboration. So usually in DevOps, there's some tension or maybe some communication, a lack of communication between business and development, and to run operations smoothly, because they have different backgrounds, etc. So in this case, in MLOps, it's whole other level, because besides business, besides engineering, there's also data scientists and domain experts. In this case, since I'm in a health startup, the domain experts are physicians, and having so many voices is difficult to take decisions. So that's the first pillar, interdisciplinary collaboration. The second one is data management. This is not my first startup, and it's fairly normal that until at least after a seed round, maybe a Series A round, a startup gets serious about data engineering. But in MLOps, the value and the pipelines of data become immediately more relevant. And this is another difference between MLOps and DevOps, which data, here I add a quote that I like. Going from DevOps to MLOps is like going into quantum mechanics, because you enter this realm of randomness, and the kind of possibilities that can go wrong, it's exponentially difficult. And finally, is improving accuracy. In DevOps, we have continuous integration, we have continuous delivery, but on MLOps, we also have continuous training, meaning that the models, as the models progress, they need to get better, or at the very least, they need to keep performing right. And that is not so easy. The article goes on different stages of MLOps, but I want to mention in particular how AWS leads with MLOps. And most of the tools that AWS offers are offered through SageMaker. I will not be able to cover naturally all of them, but I want to mention two that are the ones that I like the most. The first is training. So SageMaker has its own adaptations of libraries to train the models in parallel. So even before, if before one person could train a model at a normal velocity with a GPU, even if it's large, it will take, let's say, 1 day, 1 week, whatever time it takes. But AWS, using these libraries, it can parallelize the computations and offer, they say 90% of speed, which is the threshold. So 10 times faster. And the second part that I really like, it's also during deployment. There are, of course, not options to host a machine learning model from a Docker container or from a Kubernetes engine. or also even from a Lambda. This is an introduction last year around September that Lambda could be coded inside Docker containers. But SageMaker really makes it easy for data scientists to open an endpoint from a deep learning model right into production. So that saves hours of work, and it can shift the communications to data management. And this is the part of a continuous training model, that in order that these pipelines are automated, it's when machine learning, auto machine learning can happen. First is building with tools like Autopilot, which trains hundreds of machine learning models at the same time, just to explore the data and know what works, but also with hyperparameter tuning. And crafting the model to be right. I just want to last thing I want to mention is a problem that we do not, at least I haven't encountered in DevOps, that is called data drift. So in this case, the input that the model receives, the input data, you need to ensure that it falls within the same distribution that it was originally trained. The article goes on to some design patterns for software engineers, for machine learning, and some subjective reflections about what are the implications of MLOps. One that I particularly found out is Tesla over Toyota. Does that, following the analogy, does that means that Agile will also fall because Toyota was part of lean manufacturing? And goes on. It also has my contact information if anybody wants to go further, and some bibliography. Super express talk, but I think I made it on time.
Super, that was great. Thank you so much. If you could paste the link into the chat, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. That was great.
And folks, see, it's easy to do, a modest size talk. So 6 o'clock, let's switch to our main talk. If you could stop sharing, that would be great. Or Akshita, you might just be able to take over.
Yep, I can take over.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm actually going to, I'm very excited about this talk. I saw the brief version at Alexa Live, and wrote to Akshita and asked some questions, and we got chatting, and y'all know the second thing I say to anybody is please give a talk. She was gracious enough to agree, but I'm going to let her do an introduction and carry on.
Oops. Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Brian, for inviting me here today. As Brian mentioned, I am a founder myself. I founded OM, where we are building smart technology for the kitchen. And, in this talk, I'm kind of going to pick at different pieces of the business, explain where we started, how we thought about the problem, how we built a solution, a little bit of technical information, and then how, we plan on scaling beyond where we are today. But, I do want this to be a conversation, so please interrupt if you do have a question. And if I don't see your message, I'm sharing my screen, so if I don't see your message, Brian, just stop me and please definitely ask questions where you have interest. So as I mentioned, our mission is really to use smart technology to bring peace of mind and efficiency to the kitchen. And my background is actually nowhere near anything we're doing here. I'm actually a neuroscientist and also have a background in consumer behavior. I went to Duke, thought I'd go to medical school, decided to take a couple gap years, worked at Duke Hospital and started a concussion testing and management program for Duke Athletics. And in that time, I just had an experience in my own house that led me down a very, very different path. My mom was cooking. She got distracted, like many of us do. She left the stove on and started a kitchen fire. And, like many families, the kitchen has always been the center of our home, and we've always had burners going. We cook every meal at home, and, you get distracted for an extra 5 or 10 minutes and something burns or overcooks. And I didn't realize that it was something that really needed to be solved and that could be solved with technology until it turned into something dangerous. And as we all know, we already have hundreds and hundreds of smart devices in the connected home already that bring safety and convenience to almost everything we do. But the kitchen is really lagging behind. And when I looked into trying to find solutions for my family, I realized that, the big limiting factor in the kitchen is that appliances last for decades. And so we still have safety problems. The number one cause of house fires is still unattended cooking. And people in general are still terrible at cooking. People want to cook at home. It's cheaper, it's healthier, but we all lead busy lives, and it's very tough to multitask without the aid of all the technology that's abundantly available. And so because appliances last for decades, what I realized was that what's frustrating for consumers is that the only kitchen innovation has really been building new smart appliances. So you've got smart fridges, smart ovens, smart coffee makers, but they're all very, very expensive. And so given the lifespan of an appliance and given the cost of a new smart appliance, the average consumer just can't afford it. And so what I thought was, why aren't we learning from what's worked in the rest of the home? So we've got smart doorbells, door locks, thermostats, home security system, smart vents. Why aren't we using retrofit technology to bring connectivity to the kitchen today? And that will also open up opportunity to expand in the future. But the second thing though was, okay, well, even if I could create something that gave the affordability and the versatility of a retrofit solution, what is the market opportunity? And so, I looked at, okay, well, there's retrofit, right? There are 145 million homes in the US. Everyone has a stove. So we have a big market there. But then what about all of the new appliances that will come out in the future? Appliance manufacturers are terribly slow, and they're not tech companies. And so what if we could integrate our solutions into all new appliances and have an opportunity to license so that our technology can be directly integrated? And then I started to think, well, what are other verticals of cooking that are still lagging? Outdoor grilling. So if any of you grill often, you deal with the same struggles where, you get distracted, you have grill that's outside, and we have retrofit and integration opportunities, and then of course, commercial applications. And so, as I thought about the financial opportunity, that bringing that retrofit solution to the kitchen made sense. But, we're talking about retrofitting to hundreds and hundreds of different types of stoves and ranges, which we underestimated at first. But this is just like, a fraction of the types of stoves that are out there, both the ones that are on the market and ones that are currently in homes today. So, we spent probably a good year just researching all of the different types of stoves. So you've got, ranges, here to the left that have knobs that are vertical. Then you also, that are gas. Then you also have electric ranges. Then you have gas stovetops where the knobs are horizontal like this. And then, you have electric ranges, both knobs that are horizontal and vertical. And then if you look at, how we're retrofitting with our device, we also have to take into account, well, what does the system look like when you take off a knob? And you've got shafts that extend beyond the surface. You've got shafts that go beneath the surface. You've got bezels. And then, when you look at electric stoves, you've got not only single zone burners, but then you've got dual zone burners where you have two different zones, and we need to be able to account for settings that span both zones. And then we looked at gas ranges, and I don't know if you cook often, that a gas range the knob cannot turn 360, right? Because you're opening a gas valve, so it only goes, kind of like 270. So then if we have a solution, we need to make sure that we're not going past that, that we can, kind of go the other way around. So there was a lot of research that went into this. And what we ended up, coming up with is essentially a smart device that can turn any gas or electric stove into a smart appliance in just minutes. So this smart knob, which you can see here, I can open my app. So it functions just like a regular stove knob. All you have to do is replace your existing stove knobs with ours. The difference between your stove knob and this one is that this is Wi-Fi connected and has a built-in motor. So it can actually automatically adjust the temperature by itself. So if I, turn this on, and I turn it off, it's going to happen pretty quickly, but it'll just automatically turn itself. And so you can, imagine that with all the different types of stoves out there and all the different settings, this knob needs to know where all of those settings are based on your stove and to be able to account for that when it's rotating. With the device itself and the offering that we have an auto shut off that's really meant to tackle this safety problem of unattended cooking. So we can actually detect if you've left the stove on for too long, and we'll automatically turn off the burner and then send you notification. But then you can also remotely control any of your burners directly from our app. And we have integrated first with Alexa because we see the future of the kitchen and cooking really depending on voice in the future. And we're finally bringing voice control to surface cooking. So we just integrated that just last month. I'll get to the app. So, Brian said that it might be helpful to share, how the knob is kind of built and created. So, just wanted to go through a couple schematics, and I'm happy to, go into more detail where it makes sense. But, the device itself is pretty simple. We made sure of that because we don't want manufacturing and building this to be our barrier to scaling. And so, we have a plastic enclosure and then we have all of our components that are inside. So as you can imagine, we do have that motor, which is right at the bottom. We have a plate that goes over that motor that protects the board from the motor. This is our board. We have LEDs on here. So when you turn the device, you can actually see high, medium, and low through colors. So red, orange, and yellow. And we have a diffuser kind of light pipe that kind of diffuses the light out so that you can see it. We have this plastic light pipe that also not only diffuses light, but then it also gives support for our rechargeable battery that then sits on here. That all connects. And we have, a little USB port for charging here. Once that all comes together, then we have our top cover that just goes right back on. And what's important, especially for gas ranges, is right here on the bottom of our knob, we have a plate, that then covers that motor, but then we also have these springs. And what that does is make sure that when a knob, especially on a gas stove, is in the off position, that the shaft is pushed back out. What we realized was that stoves sometimes are not built very well. And there are gas ranges, especially older ones, where if you push the knob in, that valve can get stuck. And so we wanted to make sure that we were also accounting for that. So that spring actually like pushes the knob back out to make sure that that valve isn't open. So that's the device itself. And then, as I've mentioned a few times, the battle was trying to figure out, well, then how do we connect this to shafts of various shapes and sizes? So as I showed you before, there are shafts that stick out. There are shafts that are like deeper in below the surface of the stove. There are shafts of different widths, and there are shafts of different shapes. So, there are D shafts and H shafts. And what we ended up creating is this, adapter that can that basically goes over that shaft. And we have these little screws here that when you screw them down, then tighten onto the shaft. So it doesn't matter really the width of your shaft, because we're accounting for the broad range of widths by allowing you to kind of screw down so that we can lock onto that adapter. Because we also have to account for the shafts that are below the stove surface. We do have an extender so that you can still get this onto a shaft that goes below the stove surface. So anyway, this is really to illustrate that, the adapter is really the key to getting this knob on the stove. And we really had to try and account for the broad range of structures that are out there. And so we obviously, of course, have our device, but then we also have an app. And our app allows you to remotely monitor from anywhere. So if you leave the house and you do have that moment of panic, just like you check your security camera, you can check our app. You can see at any time, you can see it on the screen, but you can see at any time if a burner is on, and you can remotely turn it off if you need to. You can also set a cooking timer. So your hard-boiled eggs take 12 minutes. You set that, you walk away. You don't have to worry about getting distracted. And that's really actually our most used feature. We find that is the case with our Alexa skill too. So one of the most used Alexa skills is a cooking timer. And so we're kind of building on behaviors that are already prevalent in the kitchen. As I mentioned before, you can remotely turn and adjust the burner setting. And then interestingly, as we started to get feedback from our customers, we realized that our target demographic are these middle-aged adults that have young kids at home. And we didn't realize how big of a problem it is that toddlers turn on the stove and play with the knobs when they're not supposed to. And so we iterated quickly to build a software feature that can actually lock those knobs if you're not using it, so you don't have to worry about your kid or your pet turning the stove on when they're not supposed to. And all of these features can actually be used through Alexa as well. And so as we were part of the Alexa Live Showcase a couple weeks ago, that's what we were able to demonstrate. And the goal is, that we can use Alexa as a vehicle to guide you through cooking at some point. And with our technology and, additional sensors, which I'll get into, that can give us more information about what's happening on your stove, we can actually make cooking more efficient and actually save you time so that you don't have to stand in front of the stove to get a meal at home. And so, we've actually already shipped about, 1,000 devices. We are relatively early. We're a seed stage company, but we've already seen, super strong metrics and engagement. And, just for context, people use our app, actively use our app, setting a cooking timer, remotely adjusting the temperature about 15 times a month. So we really tried to hone in on the pain point here and tried to build on behaviors that consumers are already utilizing in the kitchen to create something that's sticky and then be able to expand from there. So
Can I jump in and ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you've explored getting insurance discounts, because I would think that geez, if I have these, I'm probably much less likely to file an insurance claim, and maybe I get some money back from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly, what this slide is talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so good timing. So, we have started talking to large home insurers. This is obviously a problem that they've been dealing with for a long time. But, we really need to have enough devices out so that our data is significant. And so, we will go to insurance at some point. And yeah, that's exactly the strategy, is that we can incentivize adoption through property discounts. And so I think, at a certain point when we have enough devices and we've actually shown that, hey, we've decreased the number of hazardous situations, then I think that's a no-brainer for them. But as you probably know, they're just as slow, if not slower, than appliance manufacturers. And so that's a longer term play. In the next 18 months, our goal is to really utilize our direct to consumer channels, but then also go through senior living and apartment communities. What we found initially when we were, taking pre-orders was that a lot of people were buying multiple sets. So, some for their set for themselves and then for their aging parents. And aging in place is, a huge category now. And this is a problem that, that senior living communities and caregivers deal with all the time. And one of the top reasons that, the elderly can't live at home anymore, and so, or independently, sorry. And so I started just cold calling a bunch of senior living communities, and what I realized the value was not just in having a solution that can prevent a hazard, but we can actually, with our data, get some pretty good predictive analytics about the time and the frequency and the demographic of people that have a tendency to leave the stove on, what time they like the time of day that they tend to do that. We can also see over time general cooking activity. So, Brian cooks every weekday morning at 8 a.m. and then all of a sudden for 4 days he's not cooking, and that can be an indicator that something's wrong. And they really don't have technology that can give them that data without obtrusively affecting their residents' lives. And this is an easy way to do that. So we already have our own data dashboard. We're already getting a lot of data from our existing customer base, and so that's something that we can apply for them as well.
Can I jump in? This is just fascinating to me. There's the Alexa Care, I think it's called the Care Hub.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, my mom is fairly elderly and has been a Luddite, but will talk to Alexa because it's a her, not an it. And one of the things I had always wanted was, I want to know if she goes 8 hours without talking to Alexa, because that's unusual. And Care Hub will now include that information. I'm guessing you guys or you folks are thinking about integrating that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are several platforms that will integrate with, the Alexa Care being one. And again, I think there's information that we're getting here that is not readily available anywhere else, especially in the kitchen. We're not getting any data at all, except for maybe what you have in your fridge. And so, we're kind of bringing that opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. What we're doing.
Cool.
And then, as Brian mentioned, we'll go to senior living. Sorry, we'll go to insurance providers, integrate with appliance manufacturers, and then eventually get into retail and new construction. So, just, some context for where we are today. So, while we've shipped, about 1,000 devices, we still have about 7,000 devices on our wait list. So we're actually in the middle of raising another round of funding so that we can scale our supply chain and continue to fulfill on the demand. But while we're, focused on direct consumer right now, as I mentioned, we're trying to build a very diverse distribution strategy so that we're not reliant on acquiring each and every customer in the long run. And so we do have paid pilots with Bosch, GE, and senior living facilities to facilitate that growth. We have issued IP, and if anyone's, I'm sure you guys are familiar with hardware, we've managed to ship product on just $1.5 million of outside capital. So we've been super resource efficient, but at this point kind of need that capital to get to this next level. And the reason I also wanted to show this is because we were on Shark Tank. If anyone watches the show, we were on a couple years ago, and we were offered a deal but didn't take one. But the Shark Tank experience actually allowed us to hear from thousands of potential customers on why they wanted this. And we initially, when we started, actually had a gas and smoke sensor that was a part of our offering, and realized that nobody cared about it, especially because, we already have smart, smoke detectors. We've got Nest, Honeywell, and, a bunch of others. It's also very hard to certify a gas and smoke sensor. And so, there were a lot of learnings that allowed us to refine the product and really hone in on the features that people wanted to use. And, in terms of where we're going with this, I don't want to be in the knob business forever. This knob gives us the legs to build, a cooking ecosystem that doesn't require, going through a large appliance manufacturer to get into the kitchen. So this kind of gives us our foothold, because I can bypass retailers, I can bypass all of the appliance manufacturers and get right into the customer's hand and own that relationship. But then beyond this, what we're trying to do is, actually get enough information to automate as much of the cooking process as possible, especially because, surface cooking, the stove is the most used cooking appliance. It's used twice as often as the oven and the microwave, but it hasn't changed at all. And so, what if we could know the temperature of your meat, or if your pot of spaghetti starts to boil over, or if your chicken starts to brown. There's a lot of computer vision that we use in the rest of the home already, but there's really nothing we're doing in the kitchen. And so if we can bring that, we already have control of the appliance. And so we can actually, react much more precisely in real time based on what you're cooking. And then as we expand that, what if we integrate with like Blue Apron and HelloFresh and Amazon Fresh, and we have all of these recipes already built in. So not only are we bringing value to the user and the experience, but we're also now understanding, well, what are people actually cooking at home? Right now, we have no idea, which is why, meal kit companies spend hundreds of dollars on customer acquisition, because they just don't know who to target. And so as we start integrating these recipes, we can actually see firsthand, what are people cooking? When are they cooking it? What, demographic, has tendencies to gravitate towards certain activities, and then really build out that ecosystem that uses, this flagship product to get there. So I can stop there. I know I talked a lot. If there are any, questions on what we're doing, or if there are any more technical aspects that would be helpful for me to get into, I'm happy to.
Well, if anyone else has questions, you're going to have to dive in, because I've got a raft of them. I'm curious about your Alexa voice model, because well, actually, do you control the device? Is it only the app, or can I actually talk to an Alexa device, or I don't think this has a speaker or a microphone, right?
No, it doesn't have a speaker. So you can control it through the app, and then you can also control it through Alexa. So you can say, Alexa, turn burner 1 to low, or Alexa, set a cooking timer for burner 3. So everything you can do in our app, you can do through voice as well.
Okay. So presumably I can say, Alexa, are any of my burners on, or something?
Yes, exactly. So you can say, Alexa, are any of my burners on? Alexa, how much time is remaining? On a cooking timer, you can set a safety lock through Alexa as well. And yep.
Okay. What's interesting, because when you mentioned timers, I actually just wrote a skill that I wish I didn't have to. I wish Alexa had already done it. My dog's agreeing. I set a timer in the kitchen. I say, remind me in 10 minutes to turn the stove off. Mm-hmm. And then I go up to my office, and the timer is still down in the kitchen. So I actually wrote a skill that says, Alexa, transfer my timers here to wherever I am.
Yep. Yeah.
So interesting. Maybe we have some commonality there.
Yeah, and that was a huge pain point that we actually heard initially, because most of our customers already have an Alexa in their home. And so they're like, I use the cooking timer all the time, but if I'm not there when that timer goes off, then what happens to my stove? What happens to the food that I'm cooking? And so, we easily augment that by being able to set that timer directly to our device, and we'll turn it off. We'll let you know. We'll send you notification. You can come down and pick up where you left off when you get to it.
Well, I'll send you a link to my skill, because independent of that, maybe they could just get the announcement. So in your diagram, so you've got obviously, Wi-Fi in there on your board someplace.
Yeah.
Just sort of wild. And I'm assuming
we only use Wi-Fi. We don't use any Bluetooth or anything right now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Huh. Anyone else have questions? I'm paused for a moment. Okay, well, I'll dive back in. So can you talk at all about the whole process of getting Alexa certified? Because there's a whole thing of like, let's see, your device is so your device has to be running the Alexa skill somehow.
It has to be running the
Well, I mean, because so I talked to Alexa and I say, turn my front burner off. And I'm just curious, what's the communication channel then from the Alexa to your device? I mean, are you just exporting some kind of API, or I'm just.
So I don't know the specific technical aspects of that. I mean, we do have like our own, AWS like backend that basically is getting all of the commands, whether it's from the app or the knob itself, and then kind of has bi-directional communication.
Okay.
So it's going, presumably, it's going there and then going directly to our device.
Okay. Okay. So strictly speaking, it's a Wi-Fi device that connects to Alexa, as opposed to necessarily, if I was really splitting hairs, I might say it's not an Alexa device, but it's a device that can talk with Alexa, that can cooperate.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Other people have questions. This is just wild. And I will say, when I first heard your pitch, at Alexa Live, I thought, okay, this is silly. But then it's like, well, no, this might be pretty awesome, because Alexa has the Alexa enabled microwave, but it's like, look, I put it, I go to the microwave to turn the thing on. I put it in for a minute. I don't put it on for 20 minutes and walk away.
Yep.
So that just struck me as silly. But this, oh my gosh. And I'll tell other folks that one of my good friends is the chief librarian at the National Fire Protection Association. And she was blown away by this. She's like, oh my God, this is gonna save lives. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what we hope to do. And we're already working with fire departments as well to try and subsidize, our device in low-income neighborhoods. So very similar to what, Ring did with doorbells and police departments. And so similarly, at some point we'll do that so that we can actually prove, and they use that as an opportunity to prove to insurance companies that, hey, we're actually reducing the risk of, burglary, and similarly for us, reducing the risk of a house fire, and I'm using that as a catapult to get insurance companies on board.
Okay. And I'm just gonna, if someone has a question, jump in, but you had mentioned the possibility of maybe raffling one of these critters off.
Yeah.
Even though you've got a 7,000 unit backlog. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, I'm more than happy to. The only thing we'd have to do is just confirm compatibility with your stove, but yeah, more than happy to.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell people. So first, I'm going to say how we do the raffle, but then, enter the raffle if you're interested. I mean, it's funny. We've had people, we've raffled things off, and someone has won, and they say, "Oh, I don't really want that." So, so just fair warning on that. And I'll say, usually I ask sci-fi trivia questions, and people are getting tired of my sci-fi trivia questions, but no one else comes up with trivia questions. So I'll offer to you, if you have a trivia question you would like to ask.
Oh my goodness.
Or I actually did come up with a sci-fi food related trivia question.
Let's do that.
Okay, and so the way we do it is, if you know the answer, type it in the chat, and sadly I'm not. This is one of these times where it's like I'm running the thing. So
Brian, I have another good one for you that might be related. If you want a non-sci-fi one that people might know.
Okay, all right. So Jen's going to answer the thing, and Jen, you call out. You got to look at the chat and then tell me when someone answers it.
All right, ready?
Oh. So if you're doing it, I can answer. Okay. Go ahead.
So who is the world-renowned chef who is on the TV program Hell's Kitchen? Oh.
Is that right?
It is Gordon Ramsay.
Well, you're the judge, but I think I won.
That was a very fair question, very relevant, right?
Very
Oh my
relevant.
God. Oh my God. Well, it's funny now that we've done, I was going to actually ask, and just for you, 'cause you don't win anything for this, but on Babylon 5, what was the special Centauri food? Seriously?
Chicken nuggets.
Spoo. Okay. Well, yay. Oh, I am so excited. So this has been, I think this has been a great talk. As we do these talks, we've had, 25 or 30 since lockdown, which I think is great. And there's so many topics, and it's interesting to get, a device related topic, because that's a little out of our norm, but I think that's good. I think it's good to stretch. I think OM is doing a wonderful thing. And anytime you can work at a company whose goal is to save lives, I mean, that's awesome. And I'll say, I haven't posted yet, but next week's talk, or not, the talk in 2 weeks is going to be on Kubernetes. I'm not remembering what, but it's something about containers. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Brian, what about a next live in-person meeting?
Well, we talked about that a little bit, and we can take another couple of minutes here, if you like. The a comment that Ken made is that with Delta on the rampage, if we did in person, I think we'd still have to mask and social distance. At least I've gone back to masking everywhere, and the question is, given that, how personal would it really be? So I think
What about outdoor?
Yeah, I think I'm on the fence. I mean, what do people, anybody else have a thought? I mean, right now I'd be nervous. I sort of don't want to get into you can only attend if you're vaccinated, but I'll be honest, I don't want to be around anyone who's not vaccinated. I'm sorry. So anyone else have thoughts on this?
Who's going to reInvent?
I'll be there.
Well, reInvent, I sort of make an exception for.
There's no viruses in Vegas, because whatever happens there stays there.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's still unclear if right now reInvent is on. Let's check back in a month.
Yeah, well, we should probably do the same thing for the meetup, see how August goes, and then revisit in September.
Right. I think this is I don't know, can we build a wall around Texas and Florida? But
We added a Slack channel for reInvent as well. So
yep. So there's that. And please, anybody who wants to give, just a spotlight talk, please jump in. We have lots of time. We always have room. And I want to thank Akshita. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I found this fascinating. I hope you all did, but I'm certainly, I don't care. I found this fascinating.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Well, we'll see you in a couple weeks, and we'll trade address kind of stuff, and then write a review. Yay! All right. Oh,
our Slack channel is, how do you do this? How do you share the Slack channel again?
Ken is officially the only one who knows how to do that.
I used to know how to do it.
Okay, here, I got it.
Wait, how do you get it?
Ken posted it earlier. So go there.
Copy invite link.
Yeah. Okay, so click on that, join our Slack, and then we have various channels within it. So, All right. Well, thanks, everyone. This was a blast. Have a good day. And Ashika, continued good luck with your rollout, delivery, and 7,000 units in the backlog. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.